Orb on the Movements of the Earth is one of those series that reinforces my love of anime. Its 23-episode runtime will have you emotionally distraught while distilling a mutual love and disdain for humanity. Structurally, Orb challenges its viewers with unorthodox pacing and framing that I will avoid specifics of, as it should be experienced spoiler-free. Above it all, Orb reinforces the beauty of the world with a wide breadth of characters brought to life with stunning production. Orb will be a defining anime of the 2020s, a tale of conviction as a cast of characters all get involved with the theory that could change the world: Heliocentrism. Orb is a historical fiction set in the early 15th century as we follow a young boy named Rafal as he learns of the theory of heliocentrism, a way of thinking that conflicts with the church's believed truth that the Earth is the center of the universe. Orb's story basks in brutality, a world where those who don the label of heretic receive torturous punishment. No matter how dark Orb gets, light always shines through. A story of characters who seek conviction, and within those goals convey the beauty of the world and the importance of finding purpose within it. For the first half of this video, I will stick to spoiler-free analysis to hopefully get more of you to give the show a try. In the latter half, I'll dive into spoilers and get specific about how Orb on the Movements of the Earth gets us to believe again. The story centralizes on Rafal, an orphan of the church and well-regarded student who prepares for a life studying theology at university. Rafal has an innate understanding of people, which translates to him giving those he meets what they want. When alone, his mind fixates on something other than theology: astronomy. He gets enveloped by the stars, wanting to understand the beautiful world God created. An encounter with a former heretic will change his life forever, a man who introduces him to this theory of heliocentrism. This moment serves as Orb's inciting incident. From this point on, Rafal will serve as an anchor for the drama, while we will at times learn of a wide-ranging cast of characters who all fall on one side or the other of heliocentrism. Much of Orb's screen time boils down to conversation, some scientific-based, others in philosophy or theology. Characters express their beliefs and question others. It plays out like an HBO drama in that way. Of course, this story fits in animated form, as you still get jaw-dropping action sequences to keep things exciting. As realistic and gritty as Orb is, it often steps into the surreal. While heliocentrism puts our characters together, the actual subject brings out vastly different arcs for them. For some, it's solely science-based progress, but others gain more general knowledge and betterment. A few characters even fulfill lifelong goals that satisfy themselves on a different level than raw discovery. Orb doesn't limit itself to the sciences, but deeply explores many of the perpetrators who murder heretics for the church. These inquisitors and mercenaries deeply believe they are following a right and just path, and will do anything to justify that. This culminates in tons of torture sequences where they commit unspeakable acts towards these perceived heretics. Orb functions on a greater axis because of the context in which we all watch. For all of the ease and wonder the modern age has brought us, we now live in a time of disconnect. Not just ideologically, as the internet pushes us to extremes, but a disconnect between creation and results. We live in a world of results, and our understanding of how they were achieved can only be understood through the few specializations we choose to explore. This is where the ever-growing world of conspiracy stems from, a lack of understanding on how things work. Orb makes the idea of conspiracy nuanced and complex, as the church's insistence on heliocentrism as heresy is a conspiracy of its own, one that rejects a willingness to do research and find out more understood truth. In Orb, characters choose to believe and question, something that we should all be doing. This is where the scientific element of the story comes into play. Theory is one thing, but to avoid theory from becoming conspiracy, one needs to put in research by following the checks and balances that things like the scientific method were created to ensure. When you watch Orb, seeing the lengths the characters will go to try and study this theory, it makes you want to fight and believe as well. Theory isn't something you look to prove. Instead, Instead, we should be looking at the beauty of the world and how we can better understand it. Orb has a wide scope, as the characters deal with one of the greatest discoveries humankind has made. But all of this allows each of the characters to better understand themselves. They become fuller versions of who they once were after they delve into research. I think this is because it's important for all of us to find things in life we can dedicate ourselves to. Today, it may not be breaking the scientific world, but believing in our mysterious and important jobs. The nebulous things we do in modern life can have great meaning, as long as we believe in advancement, in experiments and studies that question and further our understanding of the world. The conversations of Orb will have your head spinning with new ideas and outlooks on life. The art direction and stunning animation, mixed with a beautiful soundtrack, will fill you with emotion. And above all else, the convictions of the characters will have you believing in something just as important as them. To discuss any more specifics of the story would be to rob anime fans of one of the greatest experiences the 2020s will certainly give us. So please go ahead and watch the show, and if you've already seen it, spoiler analysis ahead. So, Rafal dies in episode 3. The character who the opening would lead you to believe as the pillar of the story leaves only research behind as he willingly gives his life away for the belief of heliocentrism. In the spoiler-free section, it was so difficult to not discuss the structure of Orb, because that's what makes everything click into place. Humans often tunnel their vision on the results, but true progress can often be about planting seeds that come to fruition years after we meet our end. This takes form in the 4 stories that make up the entirety of Orb's anime, starting with the death of Rafal. Rafal's death actually reminds me a lot of the first season of Attack on Titan, when Eren dies for a couple of episodes and we seemingly switch protagonists. While Attack on Titan didn't take that direction, Orb embeds it into the greater structure, which we come to learn is 4 story arcs of those who have been touched by the idea of heliocentrism. Rafal sets the idea in place, and his optimistic outlook shatters into a 10-year time skip that follows Oxy, the story's greatest character. Oxy lives out his life as a lower-end mercenary who carries out the will of the church and doesn't really have a will of his own. In fact, scarred from teachings as a child, Oxy doesn't look to the stars out of despair. Oxy transforms as a person after encountering the idea of heliocentrism and finding purpose for his life. Oxy starts to think for himself. After meeting Bandai and Yolenta, he learns to read and write. Oxy soon learns to read and writes down his own story, not the smallest details of scientific discovery, but a personal introspection into the changing of his life. This book becomes the central hope for the characters in the story's next stage, following a young girl who seeks to make money off of it. Stories are the strongest rhetoric we have to change the feelings and understandings of a population. Stories are the things that make us seek out our own worldview, as connecting to one's emotions can be the way to set their hearts on a new path. That's what happens to Oxy, and what could have happened to tons of people if his novel reached publication. But it didn't. Orb is a brutal tale, as the first 23 episodes are littered with death and failure, where the flicker of hope is washed out, as Oxy's book will never see the wider world of publication. All of the belief and hope for our characters snuffed out in a depressing conclusion that no matter what they could do, they could never let the truth be heard. The convictions I talked about in the first half of the video play into the idea of finding something you believe in to give purpose to your life. This comes from the interrogation of ideas. Back then, it was looking to the stars and trying to understand why they're there, but it can take many more forms. For me, it's trying to look inward to stories, how they accomplish what they did, and what kind of meanings they themselves try to interrogate. Orb in this way becomes a reflection of how one can find meaning. No matter how many centuries apart we find ourselves, truth is something that will always be limited, as long as those in power continue to make choices off of conspiracy logic and not scientific logic. Here's what I mean. Near the show's end, Noak runs into a priest who looks to the New World, understanding that most other religions do not persecute those who study heliocentrism, but that it had become a part of their culture structure out of fear of one man, a person whose theory became the driving force around facts, not the other way around. It is the ability to question, reinforced behind research, that makes this series so profound. We live in a world of conspiracy, where people take limited information and come to reasonable conclusions, but proclaim those conclusions as truth. All of us do this all the time, and while not inherently a bad thing, we can only interpret the things we know. That is what makes the idea of progress and checks and balances so important, and something that is shown beautifully through this show. In the darkness and brutality of Orb, the final 3 episodes offer up hope in a way we could have never seen coming. The fictional first 3 stories fade, and now we get a depiction of a very real person, Albert Brzezowski, who would go on to influence Copernicus and his model of the universe. The story connects to the previous 3 in 2 ways. The first is Albert overhearing a story about a book and heliocentrism, a light passing that maybe could have had some minor influence on his subconscious. The other is the real-life depiction of Rafal. Rafal comes back in a different form as a teacher for Albert. At first you wonder how he escaped, but reflecting on the series and understanding the separation between the truly fictional first 3 stories and the story of Albert, it becomes clear that this is only a representation of the same character, a representation with a very important message behind it. Throughout the story, we understand that those who are prosecuting heretics are in the wrong, as we know heliocentrism is correct and the Earth is not the center of the universe. The reintroduction of Rafal shows us how, no matter how just your cause may seem, violence can never be a part of the equation. Think about if we reframed this story, but instead of prosecuting those who seek heliocentrism, imagine if they were the ones prosecuting people for exploring the idea that maybe the Earth is the center of the universe. How much differently would we view the violence of the story then? It can be easy to justify heinous acts under the cause of truth, but no matter the research, violence should never factor into our search for progress. Because of Orb's structure, there are stretches of episodes where the story resets and we meet the new cast. In these moments, the story can feel a bit slow and maybe uninteresting, but all of it is worth it for the sequences at the end of every story. Rafal's choice to give his life to protect his research, Oxy's development into a believer, Badeni's belief in Oxy's writing as the way to keep this idea alive, Yolenta's relationship with Nowak, and her eventual sacrifice. Each character moves forward and believes in the next person, a belief that stems from humanity's joint search to understand the beauty of the world. Orb's production plays a huge part in this, the scene where Oxy speaks to his master high in the sky, or the many conflicts with Nowak throughout. The story had lofty goals, and the experimentation with the production met every single one of them. The culmination of this show is an experience that will make you search to find meaning in your own life. The world around us is something to be appreciated and thought about. We should want to understand it more, to deepen our connection with it. In the process of doing so, human connection will be made, and we'll better understand who we are. The names of those who sought progress may be lost to history, but they all undeniably helped shape a better world for us to live in. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Orb on the Movements of the Earth absolutely blew me away, and it was so much fun to watch as a part of a watch-along with my patrons and YouTube members through my Discord server. If you want to support the channel and help me make more and higher quality videos, consider checking out my Patreon and YouTube membership. Here you get access to this channel's Discord server where I host those monthly anime watch-alongs. You also get your name at the end of every video and extra exclusive Patreon content. Thank you again for watching the video, and I hope to see you in the next one.